Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of making this little skateboard animation in Blender 2.9. Now if you haven't already seen part 1, you can check the description for the link there. And what we're going to be doing now is, in this part 2, is the lighting, the materials, and also the little animation. Now this one here is my original one that you might have seen on Instagram. So the one we'll be making today is this one here, which is almost exactly the same. The only difference is the animation's a little bit different, and I didn't animate the background, and I didn't polish this one as much. But this will kind of show you the overall approach I took to making this original one here. So if you haven't seen part 1, once again, in the description below, and this blend file is on Patreon. So let's get into this. I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so to make things a little bit easier for ourselves when it comes to materials, we're just gonna go into our front view, just delete the wheel and the mount at the back. So you select them, delete them. So we're gonna add materials to this one guy over here. Then later on we can duplicate it over, and that's just going to make things a little bit easier for us and save some time. So what we need to do as well, so we need to select the board, and at the moment we only have the board and this in our scene. So the board selected, we're going to go Control I to inverse the selection. So we have all of these guys at the bottom now selected. Then holding in Shift, we're going to select the board. So the board is now the active element. Then we're going to go Control P and then go Object, Keep Transform. Now what that's going to mean, if we eventually animate or move our board, all of that will go along with it. Just makes things a little bit easier for us. Okay, so what we want to do as well, we're going to come to our render settings. We're going to make sure we're in EV. Also enable ambient occlusion and come down to screen space reflections. Make sure to enable that as well. So now we can add in some lights so we can see what we're doing. So let's go Shift A. We're going to go over here, add in a point lamp. And instead of scaling the lamp up too much, we'll just select the board and go S to scale that down. So scaling down the board, maybe even a bit smaller, like that. And then we're going to select this lamp. We're going to go to our lamp settings, or light settings, and just increase the size of it. So the radius, just bring it up till it's about that big. And then come here to the power, and let's make it something like 120 for now, just to see what it looks like. Hit Z and then go rendered. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here at the back. It's going to kind of be acting like a rim light. So at the moment it's quite weak, so I'm going to bring that strength up. Should be enough. Maybe bring the radius up a bit. And then I'm going to go Shift D, duplicate it, bring one over here, and then Shift D, bring one over here, like that. And then I'm going to go Shift A, I'm going to add in another light. That's going to be an area light. And I just bring the scale up on that, and then bring the power up into about 200, 250. And then I'm going to rotate it along the X in like this and then move it back. So that's going to be the light kind of coming from the front. And let's just actually bring the power up on that even a bit more. Okay, so now we can see the lights here. So now in rendered mode, if we go over to our shading, we can work on the material. So let's quickly go to our shading workspace. Make sure you just go Z, go rendered in here as well. And let's start with the board. So I'm going to select the board over here, and I'm going to go New. I'm going to call this Wood. And then what we need to do is we need to go Shift A, search, and get a texture coordinate. Now another thing you can do is you can use the node wrangler to do this all quickly, but I'm not going to bother today. So I'm just going to go Shift A, search, and get an image texture. And all we simply need to do is just plug the UV into the vector here, and then plug the color into the base color here. So just these simple nodes here for now will be fine. Then we're going to click Open. Now, just to keep this in mind, I'm going to just recommend that you go to something like Texture Haven, and you can go to the wood section, and you can download this plywood one here for free. This texture here, which you can use, it's perfectly seamless and free to use. But I'm going to use one of my own textures that I have on my desktop. So once you've found yourself a seamless wooden texture, just put it on your desktop or whatever, and then you can come here to this image texture, go Open. Now I've got mine on my desktop, so I'm just going to go over and select it. So it's the plywood JPEG, and you can see here it's being applied. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control 7 to go into my bottom orthographic view, then tab into edit mode, and I'm going to hit A to select this geometry. And then over here you can see is our UV editor. So I'm going to go U over here and then go project from view, right? Okay, so it's not showing it over here. You actually need to go to your UV editor. So you can see over here in your UV editor, if you now hit A over here in this window, it's going to select all of these vertices, and you're just going to go S to scale it up like that. And now you can see over here, if you hit Z and you go rendered, you can see at the bottom, this is seamless plywood here, which is what we want. So now we have that added. Let's go back to our shading workspace. And let's also just come over here and bring down that roughness amount for now. And you could also add in a normal map and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get too advanced with this, just keeping it really simple. And then we're going to add some more material. So let's go over here to our materials tab, click on the little plus, and at this point we're going to come to our modifiers, and we're going to apply one of these, and that's just going to be the solidify modifier. So let's apply. So you can come here to the drop down and just click apply. That's going to apply that modifier for us. And then what we're going to do is tab into edit mode, go to our face select option, and then we're going to go Shift Alt and then just click over here, and that's going to edge loop select these faces. And then back to this little tab here, we're going to create a new material, go new, and then assign it. And we're going to make this one like an orangey kind of material. You can make it whatever you want. I'm going to go with an orange, as we're going to have a purple background, and it's going to just kind of go with the theme. And once I've done that, I'm going to select these top faces here. So selecting all of these top faces, just making sure I select them. And you can leave them as that wood material if you want, but I want to go hit plus and then go new and assign. And I'm just going to call this deck. And I'm going to make this just kind of like a grayish material. We're not going to really see it too much, so I'm not going to get too technical with it. But if we just go Z and go rendered, we can see that's what that looks like. Maybe just bring the roughness up a bit. Just like that. So I'm going to tab out of edit mode. I've now have those materials added to the board. So we got the wood. I'm just going to call this rim. And that's the deck. Okay, so we've got those three materials. Super simple. Not too much to it. So let's get into the rest. We're going to select this base plate thing here. We're going to go new, and we're going to call this guy metal. And we're going to come over here to the metallic slider and drag it up all the way. Then come here to the base color. I'm going to make mine just a little bit darker and a tiny little bit pinkish, like that. It's just kind of what I'm going for. Then I'm going to select this guy over here, and I'm going to come to the drop down and give it that same metal material. And also going to select the nut over here. So we have, and I'm going to come to the drop down and give it that same metal material, like that. We can edit that a little bit later. In fact, just bring the roughness down on that as well, like that. Now we're going to select the wheel here, and we're going to go new. Now this is called this wheel. And with the wheel, we're going to make it kind of like an orangey kind of color, like that. But we're also going to come here to the subserve value and make it 0.1. So it looks kind of plasticky. And then we're going to come here to the roughness and just bring it down a little bit. So there we have our nice plastic material. In fact, I might bring it down even a little bit more. And then we're going to tab into edit mode. And we're going to come in here with our face select this face back here, and then go Control plus just to grow the selection. And we're going to grow it just 3 times. And then we're going to come here to the little plus, come to the drop down, select that metal, and then just go assign. So we now have that metal material in there. So that kind of makes it look like a washer. We also need to obviously select this guy in here. So just grow the selection in there and just assign that metal material to that part as well. So now we have that done. So what are some of the other things we can add? I think that is enough for now as far as materials go. So what we can do is we can go into our front view. In fact, let's go back to our layout. I'm going to go into my front orthographic view. Then select all of these guys here, so they're all selected. And then we can go Shift D X and move them back, and just place them at the back here. So we have the wheels at the back. And because these are parented, if we grab this guy, we can see that that's all following along. So that is done there. We can also see this funny shading going on here, because what we actually need to do after we applied the solidify is just select these 2 faces in here, go X, and just delete those faces. And that now should fix that weird shading going on there. So yeah, that is our materials added to the board. And we're going to mess around with the lighting a little bit later just to make things look a bit cooler as well. But for now, let's add in our camera. So the camera is quite simple. So go into your front view, and then we're going to go Shift A. We're going to go add in a camera. I'm going to come to our output settings. Let's make the wire resolution 1920. And let's go down to our camera settings, and I'm going to make the focal length really high, so 125. And then I'm going to go G, Y, and move the camera back. Then hit 0 to go into camera view. Then we can go G, Z, and move the camera up. And we just got to find a position roughly like this. So we want the board to kind of be like in the middle here. And then we can come over here to the focal length if you want to, and you can adjust it here. But what I'd actually recommend is you just go G, Y, and just move the camera back. Or even better yet, you can go in your camera view and you can hit G and hold in your middle mouse button, or press your middle mouse button, and you can zoom back like this. I'm going to go with something like that for now. We can always edit it later on. Now we're going to add in our backdrop here. So we're going to go Shift A, add in a plane, and we're going to go S to scale it up about this much. So just make it maybe even a bit bigger. Control A to apply the scale. And then we want to come in here, tab into edit mode, and we want to go Control R. And first of all, make sure you're actually in edge select. Then we want to come in here, Control R, roll in some edge loops, about this many, and then we can go double click, and then Control B to bevel those, and then roll your middle mouse button to add in one extra segment, like that. Then go Control minus or Command minus to shrink the selection. Then go G, Z, and just bring that down. Just disable proportional editing. So G, Z, bring that down, like that. Tab out of edit mode, and if that guy's selected, go to object and enable shade smooth. So now if we go into camera view, we should see this. And at the moment, obviously the lighting isn't looking that fancy, so it's not too terrific. But let's just quickly give this guy a material here. Let's just call it floor. And let's also just go to our right orthographic view, Shift D to duplicate this guy, bring it back, and then just rotate it up like that. So now we have the background there as well. And we're eventually going to animate our skateboard over here. But let's just quickly finish off the lighting and materials. So let's just quickly grab this guy here and go back to our shading workspace. And this time, just go into camera view by hitting 0, hit Z, and then go rendered. And let's, with this new floor material, come and make it purple. You can make it whatever you want, but I'm going to kind of go with a purple as I feel it really complements the orange theme here. And then we're going to go and bring up this metallic slider all the way up to 1. And we're going to bring the roughness down to 0.4, like that. Sorry, 0.4. So once you've done that, you can also come here to your world settings, and you can add in a HDRI to get some nice lighting and reflections. But I'm just going to come here and just bring this value down even a little bit more, just to create some more contrast. Okay, so if that's done, I'm just also going to select the board, and I'm just going to rotate it like this, and then double tap R just to rotate it like this. I'm trying to just get a nice position for it. In fact, go back to your layout and just move it, and just try and get something like this. Just kind of like at an angle pointing up. Just make it look nice and cool. So I'm gonna go with something like that, so we can see the underside of it. And now we're gonna come grab these lights over here, and we're gonna bring the power up of them instead of point lights. So I'm gonna bring the power up a bit, move them up a little bit, like that. And I'm also gonna make the color a little bit purplish. Maybe bring it forward a bit. So we're trying to create this nice rim lighting effect. You can do the same with this one, just bring it forward a little bit, bring it up, maybe bring it to that tip there. And that's also going to make it stand out a little bit better against the background. So you can see here if the rim lighting, if we bring the power up, it becomes a little bit more intense. And I'm going to give this one a purplish color as well. Just kind of blend it in with the background as well. And I'm going to grab this guy, just move it in towards here a little bit more, just towards the end there. And I'm going to make this guy a little bit kind of almost orangey peachy, like that. Just kind of like a lighting style that I like. Maybe grab this guy, duplicate it, bring it over here to the edge. Just trying to create this nice kind of rim lighting at the back there. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to grab this area light. And with the area light here, we're going to come and bring the power to 300. And then we're going to rotate it in a little bit more up, and then bring it a bit more in. And we're just trying to create some nice lighting at the bottom of the skateboard here, like that. Just bringing it in like that. And we might also just give this guy a little bit of a purplish tinge, just to blend the skateboard in. So that's kind of like the lighting here that I went with my original one. And you can spend as much time as you want duplicating the lights, just trying to create something that you like. Now, I'm not too into the technicalities of lighting. I really feel like it's one of those things that's very artistic. It's really up to you how you want to approach it until you get something that you like. So I'm just kind of like always messing around with things, trying different techniques, just messing around with it till I get something that I like. Really, it's no real science behind it for me. I know you get people out there that really get into all like the principles of lighting, but I'm just trying to keep it really just my own flavor for this kind of tutorial, and I recommend you guys do the same. Just find something that you like. There you go, something like that. Maybe try a little bit of a different color. Okay, so that's looking okay for now. So I'm also going to grab my camera here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my camera settings, click on the depth of field here, bring it down, and then click on the little eyedropper, and I'm going to select the board, and let's make the f-stop value here 0.4. So now we're going to see the background has got a little bit of soft focus, and the edge of the board here does as well. Now you can mess around with that value as much as you want. So let's just quickly grab some of these materials here. Like I'm going to select the wheels, go to the shading, and I think with the wheels I might bring up the saturation a little bit of the wheels here on the orange, and I might bring down the subsurface scatter amount to 0.07 instead, and bring down that roughness a little bit more. With the metal here, I might just make that a little bit darker. I just kind of like the look of that kind of gunmetal look almost a little bit more. And then with the board, I might select the board and go to the plywood. I'm going to make it a little bit more reflective, and the reason is because like with a lot of skateboards, they're quite heavily coated with polyurethane, which makes them quite reflective. So I'm going to make this one quite reflective by bringing that roughness down. So here we have our little skateboard scene. So once you're happy with how it'll look, so you can go to your layout, and let's animate this. So the next part is just going to be animating this. Okay, so with the animation, I'm going to keep it really simple like I did with my original. So with my original, what I did is I made it 150 frames down here. And I came to my first frame and I selected the board in my original position, and I went I, and I inserted a location and rotation key. So you can see there it is. And then I came to my end frame and I went I and inserted a location and rotation keyframe. So this is where it starts and ends. Then I came into the middle here, and then I double tapped R, my camera view, just kind of rotated my board like this, and I went I, and then I inserted another location and rotation keyframe. So I had something that looked like this, rotating, and then kind of going back into place. Just keeping it really, really simple. Just give it some movement. This is more intended for something like Instagram. Now you can come in here in different positions and like kind of add a little bit of different rotations or positions, and then insert a keyframe. Just kind of experiment. Try and get something that you like. You can also try and use drivers. Like some people will just add in 1 or 2 keyframes and then just add in drivers to kind of do it, and generators. But I'm just really keeping this as simple as possible, just trying to create kind of like this floating in space kind of conception kind of thing. Like just, you know, I think it looks good. So now we have the animation, we have our materials, and we have our lighting here. And obviously I'm just doing this tutorial. I spent a little bit more time on my original one that I rendered out and made it a little bit more polished. So this is kind of just me kind of doing a tutorial on it, keeping it as basic as possible. But I really recommend at this point where you go in, you kind of refine your materials, you do a little bit better effort with the lighting and stuff like that. So definitely spend as much time as you want. Once you're happy with it, all you have to do is go to your layout again, just back here. And then we're going to go over here to our output settings. And it's quite simply a matter of going here to the output, clicking on this little folder, select your desktop wherever you prefer, and then go to your file format. I prefer to go with MPEG video here, and then go to encoding, and then choosing an MP4 as a container type. Once you've done that, you can go here to render and then click render animation, and it'll render this animation out as a nice loopable animation. Now once again, I also didn't animate the background like I did with my original one. With these little tutorials, I just usually try and just keep them basic, just to try and get the general concept out to you guys. And then I kind of encourage you to put a little bit more effort into the animation and lighting and materials. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do to improve this. It's by no means like a beautiful final product. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I will be putting this model and this blend file on my Patreon, which you can check in the description below. And that's also a great way to support the channel, and I really appreciate all of the support. Stay safe, guys, and I'll see you next time for another Blender tutorial.